Ever wondered why the US, one of the wealthiest nations, is also one of the most indebted? It's a question that baffles many, and understanding it is akin to solving a complex puzzle. A puzzle that's as intriguing as it is challenging. The United States is undeniably a global powerhouse. With a robust economy, it stands as one of the world's wealthiest nations. It's the land of opportunities, where dreams come true. But there's a flip side to this coin. The US is also one of the most indebted countries on the planet. Now, you might be wondering, how can a country be both wealthy and heavily indebted at the same time? It's a paradox that's as fascinating as it is complex. But to unravel this mystery, we need to understand the concept of national debt. National debt, in its simplest form, is the total amount of money that a country's government has borrowed and is yet to repay. It's like a credit card balance for a country. Just as individuals borrow to invest or meet expenses, governments also borrow to finance their operations and initiatives. In the case of the US, the national debt is a staggering figure, reaching into the trillions of dollars. But it's not as straightforward as it seems. National debt is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can be a powerful tool for stimulating economic growth and development. But like any tool, it can be a double-edged sword. If not managed properly, national debt can lead to serious economic problems. It's a delicate balancing act, one that requires careful management and strategic planning. So, what does this mean for the US? How does it manage to be both a global economic leader and a major debtor? Well, it's a complex issue with many layers and nuances. It's a story of economic strategies, financial complexities, and political decisions. And that's what we're here to explore. We're going to delve deep into the world of US debts. We're going to unravel this puzzle, piece by piece, and shed light on one of the most intriguing economic phenomena of our time. So let's dive into the world of US debts and unravel this puzzle. So, what exactly is US debt? Let's unravel this together. Think of US debt as a massive credit card bill. It's the total amount of money that the US federal government owes to its creditors. Yes, the government borrows money too, just like you and me. And this borrowed money accumulates over time, forming what we call the national debt. Now, who does Uncle Sam owe money to? Well, it's a mixed bag. Some of the money is owed to the American public individuals, corporations, state governments, and even foreign governments. This is known as the public debt. The rest is owed to various government accounts like Social Security and military retirement funds. We refer to these as intragovernmental holdings. Bringing it down to basics, imagine you borrowed some money from your sibling and some from a friend. The money you owe your sibling represents intragovernmental holdings, and the money you owe your friend represents the public debt. The US debt is an accumulation of deficits. A deficit occurs when the government spends more than it earns in a given fiscal year. This shortfall is covered by borrowing, which then adds to the debt. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Borrowing can be beneficial. It allows the government to invest in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, contributing to the overall welfare and development of the nation. It's like taking a loan to buy a house or pay for college. It's a debt, yes, but it's also an investment in your future. So, to sum up, US debt is the sum of all outstanding debt owed by the federal government, divided into two categories: intragovernmental holdings and public debt. It's a byproduct of deficits, which occur when the government's expenditure exceeds its revenue. Now that we know what US debt is, it's time to explore why it's important. Why should we care about US debts, you may ask? Well, the answer is simple. US debt holds a significant role in shaping not only the domestic economy, but also the global one. Just imagine the economy as a giant, intricate machine. The US debt is a critical cog in that machine, influencing everything from public policies to the rates of interest and inflation. It's like the oil that keeps the gears running smoothly, enabling the government to fund its operations and stimulate economic growth when necessary. Let's break this down a bit further. Firstly, on a domestic level, US debt enables the government to fund public services, from infrastructure development to education, healthcare, and social security. It essentially provides the financial resources needed to keep the country running. Secondly, US debt plays an instrumental role in global economics. The US dollar is the world's primary reserve currency, and US Treasury securities are considered a safe haven for investors worldwide. These factors make the US debt market one of the most liquid and largest in the world, influencing global interest rates, foreign exchange rates, and investment flows. Next, let's talk about public policy. US debt is often a central issue in policy decisions, from tax laws to spending bills. It's a balancing act for policymakers who must weigh the benefits of spending against the potential repercussions of increasing the national debt. Finally, US debt has a significant influence on interest rates and inflation. When the government borrows more, it can drive up interest rates, potentially making it more expensive for businesses and consumers to borrow. On the flip side, if the government borrows less, it could lead to lower interest rates, stimulating economic growth. So, as you can see, US debt is a complex and powerful force. It's not just about the numbers on a balance sheet, it's about the health and stability of our economy, the policies that shape our society, and the future we're building for generations to come. US debt is more than just numbers, it's a key player in our economy. But how did the US accumulate such a colossal debt, you might ask? Well, the journey to this point has been shaped by a combination of factors. Firstly, let's talk about wars. From the Revolutionary War to recent conflicts in the Middle East, wars have always been expensive. They require a massive amount of resources, including manpower, equipment, and technology, all of which come with a hefty price tag. In fact, wars have often been financed through borrowing, significantly contributing to the national debt. Economic recessions are another major cause. When the economy takes a dip, the government often steps in to stimulate growth. Think of the Great Depression or the 2008 financial crisis. During these times, the government spent heavily on public works projects and financial bailouts to jumpstart the economy. However, the money for these efforts often came from borrowing, thus increasing the debt. Large-scale public projects also contribute to the debt. These projects, like the building of highways, bridges, and dams, or significant scientific research, are often funded by the government. While they are necessary for the development and prosperity of the nation, they also require substantial investment, often borrowed, adding to the debt pile. Lastly, certain policies have played a role in escalating the debt. For instance, tax cuts, while beneficial for stimulating economic growth in the short term, can lead to reduced government revenue in the long run. Likewise, increased spending on social programs, while important for the well-being of citizens, can add to the debt if not balanced with appropriate revenue. So, the causes of the US debt are multifaceted, involving a mix of necessary expenditures, strategic decisions, and economic circumstances. It's not just about reckless spending or financial mismanagement. It's a complex issue that reflects the history, values, and challenges of the nation. Understanding the causes helps us grasp the magnitude of the US debt situation. What happens if the US debt continues to grow? This is a question that weighs heavily on the minds of economists, policymakers, and citizens alike. Let's delve into the potential consequences of the ever-increasing US debts. Firstly, growing US debts could lead to higher interest rates. When the government borrows more, it competes with businesses and individuals for the same pool of funds. This competition drives up the cost of borrowing money, leading to higher interest rates. This can make everything from mortgages to student loans more expensive, squeezing household budgets and stifling business investments. Secondly, an increased US debt could lead to decreased investment. When the government is seen as a risky borrower, investors may hesitate to lend it money. This reluctance could lead to a decline in private investment as investors opt for safer options. A decline in investment can stifle innovation, hinder economic growth, and result in fewer jobs. Moreover, the growing US debt could also lead to potential economic instability. Countries with high levels of debt are more vulnerable to economic shocks, such as a sudden downturn in the economy or a crisis in the financial markets. These shocks can lead to recessions or even depressions, causing widespread unemployment and economic hardship. The consequences of US debt aren't confined to America's borders. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, meaning many global transactions are conducted in dollars. If investors lose confidence in the US's ability to repay its debts, it could destabilize global markets. In addition, countries that hold large amounts of US debt, such as China and Japan, could suffer losses if the US were unable to repay its debts. This could lead to a global economic downturn, affecting people around the world. In conclusion, the consequences of US debt are far-reaching, affecting everyone from individuals to global economies. While debt can be a useful tool for stimulating the economy and funding important initiatives, it's crucial to manage it responsibly to avoid these potential pitfalls. The consequences of US debt are far-reaching, affecting everyone from individuals to global economies. Is there a way out of this debt dilemma? Now that's the question on everyone's lips. And the answer, while not simple, is hopeful. Yes, there are multiple strategies that can be employed to manage and reduce US debts. Let's start with fiscal policy changes. Fiscal policy is the means by which a government adjusts its spending levels and tax rates to monitor and influence a nation's economy. By implementing changes in fiscal policy, the government can effectively manage its debts. Think about it like a household budget. If you're overspending, you might need to cut back on unnecessary expenses, or perhaps find ways to increase your income. Speaking of cutting back, that brings us to our second strategy: spending cuts. This involves the government reducing its expenditure, particularly on non-essential areas. It's a bit like when you realize you're spending too much on takeout and decide to start cooking at home more often, but on a much larger scale. However, spending cuts aren't always popular, as they can lead to a reduction in public services, which can have a direct impact on people's lives. It's a delicate balancing act, finding areas to cut without negatively impacting the lives of the citizens. This brings us to our third strategy: economic growth. This is perhaps the most desirable way to reduce debt, as it involves increasing the overall wealth of the nation. This can be achieved in a variety of ways, such as through technological innovation, investment in infrastructure and education. It's like getting a promotion at work. You're not reducing your spending, but you're increasing your income, which makes your debt more manageable. While there's no quick fix, these strategies provide a pathway to a more sustainable financial future for the US. It's a complex issue, requiring careful planning and strategic decision-making, but with the right measures in place, we can start to see a light at the end of the tunnel. While the debt situation is serious, there are strategies in place to tackle it. And that, folks, gives us hope. Because where there's a will, there's always a way. So we've taken a journey through the world of US debts. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. We started by unraveling the US debt puzzle, defining what it is and how it's calculated. We learned that it's essentially the sum of all outstanding debt owed by the federal government, accumulated over years of budget deficits. We then dove into the importance of US debts, highlighting how it functions as a crucial part of our economy. It finances government operations, stimulates economic growth, and allows for investments in public goods and services. However, it's a delicate balancing act. Too much debt can lead to economic instability. From there, we examined the causes of US debts. We found that it's largely driven by government spending exceeding revenue, often due to wars, economic recessions, and policies that increase spending or decrease taxes. It's a complex issue tied to countless factors, from political decisions to global events. We also explored the consequences of US debts. While some level of debt is necessary and beneficial, excessive debt can lead to a host of issues. These include higher interest rates, reduced investment in public services, and potential economic crises. Lastly, we discussed how to deal with US debts. We emphasized that it's not about eliminating debt entirely, but managing it effectively. This involves a mix of strategies, such as increasing government revenue, reducing unnecessary spending, and making smart investments that stimulate economic growth. In sum, US debt is a multifaceted issue that impacts every aspect of our lives, from the economy to public services. It's a topic that deserves our attention and understanding. Remember, understanding US debt is the first step to making informed decisions about our economic future.